Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Excuse me as I get comfortable. We're doing another book video today, and I thought that it would be fitting if I did the other book, like my next book video, in the same spot where I did my original one. I feel like it just made sense to me. I did film this look right here. I don't know if it's going to be up on my channel or not yet, but it will be soon if you're interested. So today, this was really hard for me to do, not gonna lie. I'm doing my 2023 in review for books, every book that I read this year, apart from a couple that I've already given away or donated. I've kept all of them, and I'm gonna rank them today. So before we get started in that, I do want to do a couple disclaimers. Just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you won't. Everybody has different preferences, and there are possibly going to be some spoilers in here. I can't rank a book and tell you why I ranked it where I did without possibly telling you what made me rank it that way. So I'm warning you now. There might be spoilers for some of these books, some of them may not. I did brief little like bullet points, but I haven't really thought about exactly what I'm going to fully say just yet. So yeah, and just because one book is not good to me, again, does not mean it won't be good to you, and does not mean I dislike the author whatsoever. Some of my favorite authors are in this like ranking, and they're not number one, which is crazy. And this took me a really long time to do, and I'm looking forward to doing it next year too, and starting it when I start reading the books versus, oh bless you child, versus like halfway through the year being like, hey, I want to do this, and then having to go back through to my Goodreads and figure out why I ranked them what I did. So yeah, my Goodreads is always linked down below if you're curious, but how my reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers, please subscribe and let's get into it. Really excited to do this. And I have my phone here because, like I said, I have a couple bullet points of why I ranked them where I did, but overall nothing set in stone. Again, this is all personal preference. Okay, we should know that it's 2023, almost 2024, but just in case. So we're going to start with the one star out of 5, and I ranked these the exact same way that I did on my Goodreads. So if it's 1 stars, 5 stars, it's the same way. But then I, dissected it down to all the books I ranked 1 star and then put them in order. So the first one is actually one that like everybody loves. Everybody's read this. Like everybody I know loves this except for me. And that is, whoops. And again, I apologize if I pronounce any of these last names wrong or like words wrong, anything like that. Y'all know the drill. But this is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It's just, I'm gonna zoom you guys in just a smidge. This is my lowest ranking book of the year, and literally just because it's written in what I like to call old-fashioned. When I say old-fashioned, I mean literally exactly how this book and the next book are written. It's hard for me to keep my attention when it's written like that. If my brain has to work super hard to kind of understand what's going on, I don't want to read it, and I don't want to pick it back up. So my 1 stars I'm calling not for me. So it's just not for me. A couple people that I know, this is their favorite book ever, and it's not for me. Like, it's just written old-fashioned. It's hard for me to keep my attention. I didn't really want to read it. Like, it's just not my cup of tea. Again, doesn't mean it won't be your cup of tea. It's just not mine, and that's fine, but it's not for me. I probably will still keep this just because it is literally a classic, and I'll still have it like in my book collection, but I don't think I'll ever pick it up again to reread or try to reread or anything like that. It's just not for me. And I have a little like shelf here that I'm putting them all on. The next one is literally the exact same reasoning. So I could have ranked them like at the same spot, but I literally wanted to go through and be like, no, nobody's sharing 2 spots. I want to rank them 1 spot per book. And this is The Way of All Flesh by Samuel Butler. Again, literally the exact same reason. It's just written old-fashioned, hard for me to keep my attention, just not for me. It is a thinner book. It's just not for me. It's just not my cup of tea. And you're gonna hear that a lot at the beginning of this video because these books are just not for me. They're just not mine. I haven't heard anybody who has read this. Like everybody I asked that I know were like, I've never heard of this. So I don't really know much about this author or much about this book in general. It's just other than it wasn't my preferences. Next is Not Even Immortality Lasts Forever by Ed McClanahan. It was just difficult to follow and boring. I wasn't a fan of how things were explained or this writing style. It's just not for me. It's just like a bunch of little short stories put together, which sometimes I'm a big fan of, but in this case I just wasn't a huge fan of how it was put together. I just wasn't a huge fan of how things were going. It was kind of hard to follow, like I said. It's just overall, just I think this has an audience. It's just not me. So next is a book that I already got rid of. That is Fair Game by Valerie Plame Wilson. This was literally ranked here just because most of the text was blocked out due for protection and privacy. Like whole pages were blocked out. It was just redundant. It was hard to read, literally just because I think she was in the CIA or something, so a lot of the information was like private protected information that she couldn't share. So literally you would just have pages that would just be like blacked out, and it just, to me, it just seemed redundant, boring. I just literally, no, just big no. Next is Jack the Ripper, the Whitechapel Murderer by Terry Lynch. I overall am not huge on nonfiction. You'll probably notice a theme here, but I don't mind them, but I don't like feeling like I'm reading a textbook, and that's exactly what this felt like. It felt like I was reading a textbook, and that just reminds me of being in like history class. No, not my thing. Unfortunately, I had high expectations specifically for this book. I studied psychology and criminal justice when I went to university and things like that, and like I was really excited to read this, and then it turned out to be kind of a disappointment, which I was a little upset about. But I get, again, if you are a huge fan of nonfiction, this would probably be like amazing for you. Just for me, it's just not, it's not what I love. I don't love when I feel like I'm reading a textbook. Next is another book I've already gotten rid of. It's The Gladiator by Alan Baker. Again, same reason as this one. It felt like I was reading a textbook. It had a lot of potential, which is why they're higher than like Pride and Prejudice and things. They had a lot of potential, and some of it was okay, but then I just like overall, it felt like a reading assignment. I wasn't a huge fan. This one is partially my fault. So I'm not, I'll explain. This is the 12th card by Jeffrey Deaver. It's written fine, but it's part of a series, so very confusing. I need to start from the beginning of the series. So this is what it looks like here. I have another one in the series by this author, but it's not the first one. This was just really confusing, and like there are some series that you can read like one and like it makes sense. This is not one of them. You need to start from the beginning. So nothing against the author, nothing against the book. It was written fine. I was following along just fine. It's just part of a series that I've never read, so it didn't make any sense. So I need to start from the beginning. So this one I'll probably end up keeping, maybe starting like getting the first book and seeing how I like it from there. But as of right now, it didn't make any sense. Next is a Displaced Person by, I think, Gita Schwartz. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I couldn't get into it. Story seemed decent, had good aspects going, but it wasn't as well written as other things I read this year, basically, is why it's ranked here. Yeah, it's not my favorite. This book, I kind of understand a little bit more about these as we go on. Like, when I get into like my next tiers and things, I'll be able to explain the story better, but these are literally books that like I just didn't love and pretty much forgot. But this one is about World War II. It's about a Jew that's been released from a concentration camp, trying to like get back into society. And yeah, like I had read a book about World War II and a Jewish family, which is in this ranking much higher up, that was well written, and then I read this immediately after, which could be why I was just like, it just wasn't for me. This one actually stays in here. The Mister by E.L. James. Listen, E.L. James, I read the entire 50 Shades of Grey and didn't love it. I read those last year, but this is literally the same as the other work I've read by the author. Just seemed like another Twilight 50 Shades retelling. Overall, this author is not my favorite. Like I said, I read the entire 50 Shades, all 6 books, Didn't love those because literally I understand it was written like as a Twilight fanfic, but it was so similar. I'm sorry, Eggs is kicking the camera. It was so similar that, and I already read Twilight. I really enjoyed Twilight. It was so similar that I was just like, I'm just rereading Twilight, and like I didn't love it. It didn't seem like an original idea. I understand it was a fanfic, but overall I didn't love it. I'm sorry, Eggs is freaking out. And then I read this and it literally seemed like the exact same thing as 50 Shades. And I was like, I've already read this, so why am I reading it again? So yeah, overall it's just not my thing. Now if you loved 50 Shades and like you want to relive in that world, this would be perfect for you, but for me, no. Next is Red Riding Hood by Sarah Blakley-Cartwright. It's right here. The movie's better, hard to keep my attention. I read this once before in middle school, didn't remember anything of it. So I reread it this year, but I found the story very one-dimensional. Everybody knows the story of Red Riding Hood. This is literally Red Riding Hood in a book. This movie, much better. Much better. Yeah, it was very one-dimensional. It was just boring overall. Like, it was just boring. I understand why I didn't remember anything of it, because there was nothing to remember. Next is a book I've already gotten rid of, is Still Life by Louise Penny. It was written with a big focus on religion. I couldn't really get into it. It was like, I'm not a super religious person. And this was like really in depth with like Christianity, which is fine. But for somebody who's not super religious, like for me, it was just like, okay, like it didn't really make sense. So that's, again, personal preference type thing. Next is Bridge of Clay by Marcus Zusesk, I think. Oh my God, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I preferred The Book Thief, which is actually behind me. I couldn't really get into this. This was just, again, just boring. It just wasn't my thing. I'm gonna zoom you out a little bit. I know I just zoomed you in, but I'm gonna zoom you out again. Yeah, I didn't love it. I prefer The Book Thief, didn't love that piece of work. Next is Talking with Psychopaths and Savages by Christopher Berry-Dee. This felt like reading a textbook. Again, not my favorite thing. Again, I studied psychology and criminal justice, so like I had high expectations. I read another book by this author, Talking with Serial Killers, and loved it. Fantastic. Nonfiction. This is nonfiction too. Get to this, had really high expectations, and it just fell really flat. It's literally just this psychiatrist going and talking with these psychopaths and savages and people that are in, like prison, and like writing down their stories and what they say. But I felt like this, and then Talking with Serial Killers, it almost felt like they were written by two different people. I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just how it came across, but like they have the same author, but they felt like they were written by two completely different authors. And this one just fell really flat for me. I just didn't love it, unfortunately. I had really high expectations for it too. The next two are the exact same reasoning, and the same world, but I just ranked one higher than the other. The first one is Ender's Shadow by Orson Scott Card, and then the second one is Ender in Exile. Again, they're not sharing a spot. This one comes first. I prefer this one the least. Yeah, I just didn't love these. I preferred Ender's Game to both of these. I didn't love it. Like, this one is focusing more on like Bean and him trying to learn a lot from Ender and things like that. And then put that over here. And then this one is literally just Ender being in exile. Like, he's like, him and his sister go and like live in the stars and like do things, and it's just, these are both really boring, very disappointing compared to Ender's Game. Ender's Game, I enjoyed. Like, I liked that book. It's actually in this ranking, but for different reasons. But these two, no, no. Next is The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenger, I think. I'm not sure. So this I was really enjoying. Like these last two books, I was really enjoying. I was really into this. I was like lived in this world. But then he went back in time and had sex with his teenage self, and it ruined it for me. Yeah, it ruined the whole thing. It ruined everything. So yeah, no. Yeah, no. It's just a no. I really can't explain anything else other than that. That's why it's ranked here, because it was really good. It had a lot going for it, and then that happened, and it was just an immediate no for me. And then the last one in my 1 out of 5 stars is Haunted by Kay Hooper. This again was really good. Like I could not put it down. And then it turned into like demonic possession. And I knew like possession was going on, but when like demons got involved, it just, no, sorry. Again, like these last 2 books really had a lot going for it, but like these were really just like not for me. Not for me. The next one is my 2 out of 5 stars, which are titled Could Be Better. So these are books that I didn't think were bad, but they could have been a little bit better. You know, it's just could be better. The first one is Schroder by Amity Gaige. It was good. I enjoyed it, but it needed a little bit more action. It's basically just him retelling like the story and how like I'm trying not to like provide a shit ton of like spoilers for every book, so I apologize. So it's like him, like he lived like a story, like he lived a life as somebody else basically. He doesn't know like who he is in a way, like he just pretended who he was, and it's basically just him going back and like telling you what happened essentially. So it was good, but it just needed a little bit more action. It just needed a little bit something else to take it to the next level. Overall, not terrible, just needed something to push it to that next level. And then the next 2, I already got rid of. The first one is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. Good. Middle of the book wasn't fantastic, but the ending was good. That's pretty much it. It was good. It was good. And then A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. Good, better than the first book. Definitely preferred it, but didn't enjoy the ending. I enjoyed how Carl had to assist April May with learning to accept herself. I think that's something that people can really take away, but other than that, it just was like, I feel like it just needed a little more. Just like a little bit more. And then finally, for my 2 stars is Looking for Alaska by John Green. Preferred other works by John Green. I loved the world building, the abroad school, the lake on school property, how Miles is an outcast. I enjoyed how Alaska and Miles became friends, although I do wish that they would have had more time together. You know, yeah. Like, I get why it's called Looking for Alaska. I think her death is really sad, but there are other works by John Green that I like more than this. But I think if I had to rank his work that I've read, at least so far, this would probably be at the bottom. It's nothing terrible. Like, it's not bad. It's just, I do wish that Miles and you know, Alaska could have had a little bit more time together. And you know, they could have developed their relationship a little bit more. I personally think that would have taken this book to another realm. Next are my 3 out of 5 stars. I titled this category, It's Alright. It's alright. They're not bad. I think they were finely written. There were maybe a couple things that I would have changed or would have liked to see, but overall, it's alright. It's alright. So the first one is The Men on My Couch by Dr. Brandy Engler with David Renzen, I think. I enjoyed this. This is, again, a nonfiction, but it felt long. I love psychology, but some sections were easier to keep my attention than others. And I think it is important to read to help provide better understanding of the human mind, which this really helps with that. But again, I just feel like some sections of this book were just really, really long. I felt like some of it could have been shortened a little bit. Not so much as like page fillers, but definitely could have been shortened. I think it would have been a little bit better had it not felt so dragged on. But not bad. Next is Eldest by Christopher, I think it's Paolini. Beginning was good. It was sad with lots of deaths. Middle of the book during training seemed confusing and long. Necessary, but long. The ending shocked me. I did not see Murtagh being alive, being a writer, or being Aragon's brother. Aragon and Rowan reuniting made me so incredibly happy. Not listed higher only because it felt longer than necessary. So yeah, I basically just told you what the book's about. But yeah, Murtagh, I think it's Murtagh, I've heard it pronounced both ways. Being alive shocked me. Them being brothers and then him also being a dragon rider was like, oh, okay. But yeah, it seemed longer than what it necessarily needed to be. The training part was, while it was essential, it just felt a little dragged on. Just a little dragged on. Next is The Storyteller by Jodi Picoult. I prefer other works by Jodi, but good. I wish that we would have gotten justice for Grandma. I love that Sage turns to investigators to help provide justice for her, but I do wish that Grandma would have lived to see justice. This book is about, again, a Jew in World War II. Grandma is that Jew, and Sage is, you know, is approached by somebody that she knows and is like told that, oh, I was a Nazi. It ended up being that he was abusive to Grandma. When Sage built up the courage to like report him and she finally hears Grandma's side of the story, the Nazi ends up dying before anything is done. And then like, I understand why it happened that way, but at the same time, I wish we would have gotten justice for Grandma and that there would have been a little bit more. Other than that, this book was great. I love Jodi. She's one of my favorite authors, but there are other things by her that I prefer a lot more than this. Next is Mercy, again, by Jodi Picoult. Preferred other works by Jodi, but good. Not happy about wife forgiving the husband for cheating. Left me realizing and thinking back to things said in this book months after finishing it, which I personally love. I love when books leave you with more and leave you like referring back to it in your brain, either about something or you like reference it. That to me means it was meaningful and that it really connected with you and it really had your attention. This book did that for me, you know, specifically one of the lines that said, one person in a relationship always cares more than the other person. And that is a realization and it's so incredibly true, but I don't think people realize that. So once it was said, it was like, yeah, that makes total sense. But yeah, it left me really thinking about it months later on, which like I said, that's how I can tell when a book is really good for me personally. I obviously can't speak about like other people's preferences, but that's definitely a big one of mine, is if it leaves me thinking about it or referring back to it, that's how I know it was a good book. And this definitely did that. And then finally, for the 3 out of 5 stars, it is Lone Eagle by Danielle Steele. I wish that Joe and Kate would have had that happy ending. I like how the book was written with Kate almost retelling her experiences, but not jumping back and forth repeatedly. That was pretty nice. It is, you know, basically this, Joe is a veteran. He goes off to war. He's a pilot. Kate kind of waits for him and she's like madly in love with him, and he loves his planes more than he loves her. And you know, he preferred being by himself, and then he dies and they don't end up having like the happy ending that I think they both deserved, especially Kate. I think she went through a lot that, you know, for Joe, and he was more focused on other things and just didn't really respect her. But overall, it was really good. It was nice. I liked it. I kind of flew through it. Again, that's how I know it's good. But yeah, I really wish that Joe and Kate would have been happy together in the end. Unfortunately, they were not. Next, we have our 4 out of 5 stars. So these are titled Would Read Again. I guess I could have titled that for 3 too. Like, I don't think there's a book over here that, like, in my 3 out of 5 stars that I wouldn't reread necessarily, but this title Would Read Again. Like, these are ones that I'm like, yeah, for sure, keeping that, not going anywhere. You are gonna stay a part of my collection. The first one is The House by Danielle Steele, another Danielle Steele book. It was good, predictable but good. I enjoyed that Sarah connected with Jeff. I was rooting for that to happen, even though it was predictable. I like that we saw Sarah open up to changes that were hard but necessary, including leaving her ex-boyfriend. I was stunned but not super surprised that he had a secret relationship after being super weird about family time and weekends. Like, I was like, okay, this guy's weird. Like, he's really weird. And then when it turned out that he'd been cheating the whole time, I was like, yeah, I'm not really surprised too much by that. Like, I kind of figured that. Like I said, it was predictable but good. I do like Danielle Steele's work. Some of it is a little bit more predictable than others. This one definitely has that predictability aspect in it, but overall, not bad work at all. I quite enjoy a majority of her work that I've read. Again, not terrible, not like my absolute favorite either, but not terrible. Yeah, I did like this book. It was nice. Eragon by Christopher Paolini again. I enjoyed more than I thought I would. This was like my first real dive into fantasy. I thought it was good, a good opener for more heavily fantasy focused books. I liked being able to refer to the map. There's a map on the inside of this book on the front and the back to understand where they were while traveling. I like how Eragon isn't written to be a know-it-all teen. He genuinely is surprised by what happens to him and does what he thinks is best within those moments. So he's not like, I know everything. He's very trainable, very approachable. I actually quite like Eragon. He's probably my favorite in the whole series, which makes sense. But I think I've grown really attached to him. I've grown really attached to him. And when I finish the series, I haven't read the newest one, Murtagh, but I really want to. That's the only one I don't have. When I finished it, I was actually really sad because I wasn't ready to leave. I wasn't ready to recover from Eragon. I wasn't ready to leave him behind. I've grown quite fond of him over the couple of weeks that we spent together. But overall, I really liked it. Is it my favorite book in the series? No, I actually have a couple more that are ranked higher than this one, but overall, not bad whatsoever. Not bad. I highly recommend if you are like me and haven't really been into the whole like big boom of fantasy and you're like, I want to know what this is about. This is a really good place to start. Next is Will Grayson by John Green. I was personally very fond of the second Will Grayson. I think he was more of a dynamic character. There was less interaction between the two of them than I thought there'd be. The ending was very good with Will standing up for Tiny. For a book titled Will Grayson, they don't spend a whole lot of time together. So this book has two people named the exact same thing, Will Grayson. And they do eventually meet and they do eventually sorta become friends, but not really. You would kind of expect them to spend a lot more time together with a book title like this. They don't. The second Will Grayson ends up dating the first Will Grayson's best friend, Tiny. And it's like, okay, that's kind of bizarre. Like, it's like, I feel like when you're explaining it, it's really hard to explain because it's kind of confusing, but when you read it, it makes perfect sense. This is also written by David Levithan as well. Overall, not bad. I did like it. Like I said, I really liked that Will ended up standing up for Tiny. I thought that was really sweet, especially after the interaction that Will and Tiny had had previously. But I did like it. I just wish that Will and Will would have spent more time together. Personally, but that's just me. Next is Berzinger, I think, by Christopher Paolini. I loved the action that the book brought. Reuniting Eragon with Rowan and Katrina, seeing Rowan turn into a warrior. I also was super surprised when I learned that Brom was Eragon's father, and I was very happy about that. I was like super shocked about this. I wish that there was more background story from Brom, about Brom being Eragon's father. I was also surprised that Murtagh is Eragon's brother and that he was alive. I was more surprised that he was alive than anything else. I do think that him being a dragon rider as well was unnecessary. I understand why it was added in, however. I do wish it was someone else, and that Murtagh and Eragon could work together instead of against each other. Again, personally, this is book 2 of the series, if you were curious. Oh no, it's not, it's book 3. I lied. Eldest comes first. Oh my goodness, this is book 3. Whoops, it is book 3. So yeah, personally, Brisingar and Eldest, which is the second one, this one, the red one, to me, they almost blended together. Like Eragon, the first book, and then the last book, they're very separate. This happens in this book, this happens in this book. These two felt very like one book that was just split in half, which isn't a bad thing, but when you're like trying to explain what happens in each book, it's a little confusing because some of what I just said could have happened in this book, and then what I said about this book could have happened in this book. Like it's very intertwined, which is fine. I don't mind series like that. Clearly I liked the Eragon series, or the Inheritance Cycle, I think is what it's actually called. But yeah, I liked this one a lot more than Eldest. I think it was just, like I said, I liked the action a little bit more. I liked getting to find out a little bit more about Eragon's history because it was such a mystery in the first book. Yeah, overall I really liked it. Like I said, when I talked about Eragon, I really liked it. I wasn't ready to leave. And then next is Inheritance, which is the final book that I have. I love that Eragon and Saphira, I think, were able to revisit Brom's grave as promised, and that they were able to overthrow the king and save Murtagh and Nazuada, I think. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was super concerned after she was captured that she would die, but she survived, and she bonded with Murtagh as well, which I love. I like him as a character, as in the beginning he didn't want to hurt Eragon. I also enjoyed how Rowan was recognized more for his bravery with battles. I personally was really fond of Murtagh, okay? I really was. And when he turned against Eragon, I was really upset by that. I was like, no, you're kidding me, because I didn't know how it would end, and I was really concerned that Eragon would eventually just have to kill him and Thorn, and I was like, please don't do that. Like, I don't want that to happen. I liked them both. I liked them together. So seeing them reunite in this book and seeing Murtagh grow a relationship with Nazuada, I think that's how you pronounce her, I don't know. I loved it. I loved it, and it made me really happy. And then having them all work together to overthrow the king, I loved it. Like, I can't wait to read the 5th book that just came out last month. I cannot wait. I'm so excited, but I don't have it yet, so I'll keep you updated on that one. But I loved, love, love, love. If you don't have the 5th book, the first 4, amazing. I loved them. I loved them. But if I had to pick, the 4th one's my favorite. And then the final one for this category, before we get into my 5 stars, is The Rainmaker by John Grisham. I've tried reading a book by this author before and I didn't love it, but this one I loved. It has a slow start but very good read. Rudy has a lot of development over the book. It is very upsetting that Donnie Ray ends up passing away, even though you're expecting it throughout the whole book. I like how the book developed, but you have to reach the later half of the middle book for it to be interesting. I also enjoy that Rudy goes up against this super successful lawyer, and he does this one trial and basically retires. Like, he does this huge trial for this family about this insurance, and he just graduated law school. Like, he just graduated, like, he's fresh lawyer. He goes up against this super successful lawyer. He has all these people behind him, and then wins, and then literally is like, I'm never gonna do it again, and then just like retires. Like, I thought that was hilarious, first of all, and I loved it. I loved it. It has a really slow start, so if you've tried reading this and you're like, oh my God, it's boring. I get it. However, you just gotta keep going. It's one of those books that gets better as you read it, and I like it. The other book that I tried reading by John Grisham was also about a lawyer, and I didn't love it. This was years ago. I was a freshman in college, but I didn't love it. This one, fantastic. Fantastic. Definitely worth the read. We get into my 5 stars, which I've labeled loved it. So the first one is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. A second time reading it, it only felt fair to rank it at the very bottom of the 5 stars because clearly I love it enough to reread it, but I'm not going to rank it higher than this because I've already read it. I love the development of Ender, and I love the aspect of space. Fantastic. This is a good movie as well. I love this. Over, you know, I didn't love the next 2, but I really enjoyed Ender's Game. I'll probably get rid of the other 2 and just keep the first one, which I don't love splitting up series. Now, because it is the first book, I'm okay doing that, and you don't really need to have all of them, whereas like some other series you need to have all of them. But I'm not just going to keep them to keep them. I didn't love them, but this is, I read this the first time when I was in like, I think 8th grade, and I loved it. And I went out and bought my own copy because I checked it out at the school library, and then I reread it this year. So it only felt fair to rank it in the top 5, like, I guess not top 5, but like 5 out of 5, but at the very bottom because like I've already read it. So I already knew I liked it and I already knew what happened. So yeah. Next, you're gonna see a lot of Robert Dugoni, okay? I discovered this author, I think either the very end of last year or the beginning of this year, and I am obsessed. Like, one of my favorite authors ever. One of my favorites. Love it. So first is Close to Home, and these are all part of the Tracy Crosswhite like world. Close to Home, love Tracy, but I had to rank them somehow, and this one is just my least favorite out of all of the ones I read. It's not bad. I finished, I think, this one in particular in like one day. I love the soft matte covers. I love this world. I love Tracy. I love everything about her. I love the world. Like I said, I love Robert. Everything is phenomenal, but I had to rank them somehow, and this one would just be my least favorite. You know, it's just like, I would recommend you read all of them, but if I had to rank them, this would be at the bottom. That's how I feel. And then next is Her Final Breath, again by Robert Dugoni. Literally the same thing as that one. I love this world. I love Tracy. I love the writing. I love Robert. I love everything. But I had to rank them somehow. And when I think of like, oh, what's like my favorite one? This one just doesn't come to mind. It's not bad. This is literally like, you know, a cowboy killer, or a killer known as the Cowboy, is like killing people, tying people up, like all kinds of things. Like these are like crime, mystery, thrillers. I love them. I love these. I need all of them. Okay, I don't have them all, but I need all of them. Next is Still Missing by Chevy Stevens. I really enjoyed. I was rushing to finish this. This is literally about a girl who gets abducted and is kept like hostage for years. She ends up having to live like in a shack basically with this really abusive guy who, or I guess her kidnapper, and like ends up having to have like his baby. She's like literally washing clothes in the river. Like they have no electricity, I think. I don't think they have electricity, at least. They may, because I know they take showers. So I know they have running water, but I don't know about, I can't remember. But yeah, she ends up having his baby. The baby ends up dying. She ends up finally breaking away and like killing this man and like finally getting free. And then she's reunited with her family, and she's been gone forever, and like she can't readjust back to like her original life, like her before life. Like she can't get back into being like a real estate agent. Like she can't like go back. So good. Okay, so good. You need this. You need that book in your life. Okay, so good. Again, we get into Robert Dugoni. The next three are basically all Robert Dugoni. So the first one is In the Clearing. This is about a girl who is murdered like years and years and years and years and years ago, one of Tracy's friends is like, hey, my dad died. He went crazy basically trying to solve this case. Like, can you fix it? Like, can you help? She ends up being murdered because these teenage boys like ran her over, hurt her, and then she was still alive, and one of their dads like threw her over the bridge and like she drowned. That's this one. And then the next one is The Trapped Girl. This is a girl that's trapped in like a fishing crate thing. That's where they find her body. And then the final one is the very first one, which is my personal favorite, which is My Sister's Grave. The whole world starts here, and like she refers back to things in this book throughout the rest of them. Now you can read these without reading this one. It's not like you have to read them in order, but like I just felt like this one like was my favorite just because this is where I fell in love with the world and Tracy and Robert's writing and everything else, and it made me want to buy everything else, and like I have to have everything that he writes. I just need it. And so I felt like this was just like, it felt right to put it at the top, you know. But I love all of these books, like all of the Tracy Cartwright books. Like I love them all, truthfully. I don't know how I could rank them based on like what happens in them, because they're all so good. They're all so good. And I love watching Tracy's character development throughout the stories. It's just phenomenal. You know, her getting married, her having a baby, like everything else. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Obsessed. Next is One Perfect Lie by Lisa Scottoline. I loved this. I really want to read more work by Lisa. This is basically this guy. He basically is lying about everything. He's undercover, and he is like, he becomes friends with this kid in school, and like he's trying to manipulate him in a way for like his undercover work, and then he ends up falling in love with this kid's mom, and like he ends up telling her like, hey, I'm not who you think I am. Like my real name is not even Chris. Like I need to tell you like everything. I need to come clean. She's like super pissed about it because, you know, she thought he was somebody else. This is so good. So good. Again, like obviously all the 5 out of 5s, I love them because they're 5 out of 5s, like duh. But like it was so hard to rank these, but all of them are so good. Like especially like, I guess if you only want to read books out of one section of this video, definitely 5 out of 5s, duh. But like any of them, this one's good. Okay, it's just perfection. That's all I can describe it as. It's perfection. Next is Storm of Bells by Robert Tier, one of my favorite series. I'm very happy to see Lily and Ambrose get married. This is mentioned in my first book video. I love Robert. I read his work on, I think, Wattpad back in the day. It's been published. And then I actually got an email response from him recently about, I sent him an email because in the end of this book, it's mentioned that there are other books, but I can't like find them anywhere. And he's like, yeah, he responded to my email and told me like, yeah, there are more books. You can't order them on Amazon just yet. Like it takes a little while. But that made me so happy. Like one of my favorite authors emailed me. What? And then there are more books in this series, and I love this series. Again, soft matte, my favorite. But I love Lily. I love Mr. Ambrose. I know like you're not supposed to love him. He's supposed to be like unlikable but likable. I've always liked him. And I love Lily. She reminds me so much of like people that I know in my life, sometimes even myself, with some of the things that she says. She's definitely like an alpha female personality, but in like the 19th century. Like I love this series. I have all of them that are published currently. I love it so much. I like flew through this, and then like when I got towards the end, I was like literally like reading so slow because I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave this world again. Like, I just love this. And I love that there are like so many references to like historical things, which is Robert Tier's like whole thing. I love this series. If you're gonna read any of the series that I recommended today, Tracy Crosswhite, which is like crime, mystery, thriller, and then Storm, I think it's Storm and Silence series is what this one's called. This is like 19th century historical romance. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. I honestly can't tell you which one's my favorite. I can't. Like, I can't. I love them both. And then I also really love the Aragon series, like the Inheritance Cycle, but I haven't read the 5th one that just came out. So I don't know if I can like really say that, but yeah, just thinking about this world gives me like, it makes me so happy. My second favorite book of the year is Grey by Pete Wentz. Left me thinking for months after finishing it. It kept creeping back into my mind. Again, I've already addressed how much I love books that do that, but this book in particular, I finished this months ago and I still think about it to this day. This book is just, it's beautifully written. It's a novel, but it's kind of like a memoir, but not really a memoir. Like I don't know, it kind of falls in like between. I really like how it's written, and I obviously I love Pete Wentz, but like I don't know, like this book just, it kept coming back into my brain. So if you wanted, like, it's relatively thin, if you wanted a quick read, this is really good. Really, really, really good. I highly, 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 highly recommend. And then my favorite book of the year, which these two were very close, Grey and this book were so close, is I Am Watching You by Teresa Driscoll. I did not see the ending coming. Very surprised, and it kept creeping back into my mind again. Those are really important aspects for me, but I did not see the friend being the killer. What? Excuse me? Like, the whole book, you're thinking it's somebody else. They can't figure out who killed this girl. They can't figure out what happened to her. She vanished. Just vanished. And then he kills her because she wants to, like, he can't have her. It's like the, if I can't have you, nobody can type thing. I was like super shook. Okay, super shook by this. You know, somebody's sending Ella, which is the main character, like threatening letters in the mail. The daughter, Anna, who was murdered, is still missing. Her, like, Anna's friends and family like have something to hide. Like, Anna's dad is not exactly who you thought he was. He's like somebody else, and you're like, what in the world? Like, there's a lot of like, what is going on here? But I did not see that ending coming, and for that reason, like, this book, great. But these two were so close to being like tied. If like either one of these could be number one. Like, seriously, they were so close. But ultimately, I ranked this one higher than Grey just because it really shocked me. Like, I can't even explain to you like how shocked I really was when I read this. It was so good. That's all the books that I read this year, which was a good chunk. A good chunk. Like, I think if I go to my Goodreads right now, 44 books, which is 17,477 pages. Like, I have them all listed here on my Goodreads, like all the books that I read this year. Oh my gosh, look at them all. Oh, it makes me so happy. I love seeing them all together. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm so happy. I love to read, clearly, but this is a little off topic, but kind of not really. I love to read, and the last couple years I haven't really had the time or the motivation to really read, and this year, like, things really changed around for me. Obviously I read so many, but I found so many good things this year, like book-wise, so many good things that I'm so happy to have discovered, you know, like Gray, and I Am Watching You, Tracy Crosswhite, Aragon. I discovered that there's more to the Storm and Silence series, which is phenomenal. Like, there are so many good things here. It just makes me so incredibly happy. So incredibly happy, and I'm looking forward to hopefully doing a 2024 year in review. I don't know yet. Obviously the year hasn't started, but I don't know yet. I don't know if I'm gonna like end up reading a shit ton more books next year. I hope so, because I literally have like 400 something. I'm surrounded by 2 bookshelves right now. I have 4 in my house. I only have like a shelf and a half empty before I need a 5th bookshelf, which is crazy. But like, yeah, it's just, I love them and they're so good, and literally I'm just so happy. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your top book of the year either in the comments or on social media, and help me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers, and I will see you guys in my next video.